Hey world, Didier here. Hope this finds you in as much wellness as possible. Wanted to share some reflections on the practice of creating brave spaces, largely because people have been finding that promising safety and creating safe spaces when having high stakes conversations, you know, about racism, for example, and their differences of power in the room, right? That can be, while well intentioned, unrealistic and unfair. And so the question really is about rather than how do we center comfort and caution when we're having conversations, to centering courage and compassion. And so I want to offer a few reflections in service of that, in service of the conversations you're having with your people. And one way to remember some of these practices I'm going to offer in your efforts in creating brave space is to think of the acronym CARE, right? C-A-R-E, C for center, A for align, R for reflect, and E for experiment. And I'll say a few words about each of these. Right? So first is C for center. And by that I mean returning to our own center. Right? When having high stakes conversations, we know it's always important to come to a full sense of presence in ourselves, in our bodies, including beneath our necks and beneath our conscious thinking. What's present? Sometimes it can be helpful to use this thing that we know always works well, which is breath, right? And so a very simple practice is a box breath technique where we inhale for 4 seconds, we hold for 4 seconds, we exhale for 4 seconds, and then we hold for 4 seconds. So we inhale, and we're coming to center and presence with what's so for us. The A is for align, and by that I mean align with your people. We need some shared agreements in how we're going to work and learn together, right? We need some guidelines. So what are those? Right? Some 3 common ones that you can experiment with, but you want to find your own flow with this, of course, is we speak to our own experience, and we come from our own experience always, because we're all experts in our own lived experience, and that's where we come from. 2, we don't judge or interrupt. And 3, we don't assume, we ask questions. There are many more, right? But you want to find your own flow with that and just offer some possibilities on how you and your people can come to a place of alignment in having a brave conversation. R is for reflect, and by that I mean modeling, right? We want to model the behavior that we're seeking to create space for, right? And so I am doing my best, we are doing our best always to honor the agreements, to embody them, to speak from our own experience, to challenge with respect and grace, right? To offer support, to ask questions and not make assumptions. All the things that we're agreeing to, we're going to model, right? If we want people to be vulnerable, we have to demonstrate what that looks like, right? What's so for you? What's present for you in this moment, right? Anger in the body, right? And compassion in the heart. And those things can be true for you. It can be true for me, and I will come from that and name that as we have this conversation. I want to model what we're inviting people to practice. E is for experiment, which means we just want to try shit, right? Doing this type of work really demands that we think beyond a success-failure binary, right? This stuff is messy, right? We know there's no quick fix, right? Which means we have to think beyond our conditioned Eurocentric ideas of linear progress, right? And we focus our attention on experimentation. We know that all leadership and facilitation that's effective always tries new approaches, right? We can make progress, we hit a wall, change course as needed because we're learning how to be agile constantly. Right? So an invitation to take up a spirit of experimentation in our efforts in creating brave spaces. Right? So C.A.R.E, offering that also because we know this is about creating cultures of care, right? Which is part of what happens when we're thinking about creating cultures of bravery, right? So I invite you to take those up, try those out, your own journeys and experiments with centering, aligning with your people, reflecting and modeling behavior, conducting experiments, right? And what are you noticing? What are you learning? Right? What are some centering practices that work well for you? What have you found to be effective ways to align with your people by creating guidelines and agreements up front? Right? How are you modeling behavior? And what experiments are you trying? What are you learning? I'd love to hear about that, right, in service of our collective learning and our individual learning. And so feel free to share. Appreciate you listening. Thanks.